We'll call the meeting to order with everyone present. First on the agenda is Lee Bjerke, County Engineer, Road Matters. Go ahead, Lee.
Just the project updates. We've got the radius. They're forming on them now. Most of the shouldering is done. We gotta do yard work inside Calmer because we changed that grade and tore everybody's yard up, and they'll be having to get all of that done. Hopefully here within this week, we'll have the vast majority of it done, and they can start thinking about painting it and getting it. Brennan's moved out on Bridge 237. Brunings have moved in. They had to do all the approach work and get the slopes and everything in. Hopefully a week, maybe a little longer, they'll have that done, and that'll be that one we can get that. Bridge 317 on Wren Valley, they took structure down. They poured the new caps on that. They're gonna go back now and strip that box culvert on W14 while those caps are curing, because we can't put the load on them yet for a while. But so that actually worked out really well. While they were waiting for the box to cure, they poured those caps, and now they can finish the box while they're waiting for the caps. So
then after that's done, then we set
then they'll set the cars. They still have a little bit of work to do on them before they can set them, but they still, I mean, it's kind of just working out, keeping themselves busy while they're getting both projects going. So,
Did they finish those wings on W14?
yep.
So they're all done, the concrete work out there then?
Yeah, they just couldn't strip the box. It's still being supported on the inside, so. Wicks are out, and we're working on the new salt shed and getting that poured. So, that's still sitting in forms, but, they're working on that. The neighbor to the north and kind of behind us, so it'd be the north and east, they just have campers up there. They come in kind of their recreational place to get away from everything. They can't put a well in. Some of the reason they can't do that is because of where the bedrock is and why we had to drill a new one, because of the contamination that's sitting on top of that bedrock because of the things we did many moons ago. So they asked they said they would probably fill it twice a year, but they have a 1,000-gallon tank of water, and that's what they use for their water up there. And they said, could we just run a hose and fill it off your building? I don't really have any issue with it. We don't use a ton of water up there, but it'd be easy for them, and they can't get a well, and it's partially our fault. So,
It's actually a little better for the well than the pumps anyway.
yeah. Any reason I don't know, but just so you guys were aware. North of Ridgeway, you guys know where the old parsonage is off W14? It's half a mile maybe to the.
It's for sale.
It's for sale. Years ago, I tried to get that little stub of road that goes to it vacated, but the board at that time said we aren't gonna do that because that's the parsonage to the church. Now the church is selling it. It'll be a private residence. And now's our chance to get rid of that little stretch of road. Unless you guys wanna keep it, you know. So I'll have the guys start working to get rid of that. Now it should be really easy.
Looks like a driveway, but about halfway up, it switches from a county road to driveway.
Yeah, it doesn't go all the way to the building.
Right.
We have to pretty much go the whole way, because you can't turn around. It's pretty
Well,
narrow.
the way it sits in there, we'd be snow plowing a private long driveway. So I think
Yeah, here's the opportunity to get rid of it. And
Yeah.
I think we should. Along those lines, I see Danielle Dotzenrod is coming in to discuss Horn Hollow with you guys. She's been a couple times to talk to us. She doesn't technically own it, but her boyfriend owns a piece of property there. And they've had some disagreements, I guess, with one of the neighbors, and or I believe she's renting the house out like a VRBO type thing. And people go for walks and stuff, and they follow the road down, and they're going onto other people's, in front of other people's property. It's causing a conflict. The other landowners have been in and asked about how do we get rid of this road, because it exists on paper. It was altered at some point in history, and the photos changed, and the road moved.
So nothing was ever recorded.
We can't find it. Doesn't mean it's not there. We can't find it.
This is on the agenda at 10. Are you coming back for that?
I can. And I'm gonna leave you with this. She's here now. Is she? Okay. As far as that original establishment, that's one long road. It goes for miles and miles and miles. The only section of it that's still in that you could probably drive is this part around Horn Hollow Road. Mike has done a retracement of what is there, what we're plowing and maintaining. It does not sit on top of where the road was established. Like I said, they moved it at some point. We can't tell you exactly when, but we kind of have an idea of when.
Like 10 years ago, 50 years ago.
Oh, no, like in the 40s, 30s or 40s. I mean, it's been in this limbo forever. And, I don't know if it's gonna ask to be vacated. The one landowner looked into it, asked me about it. They brought up, you can make it a class B, you can make it a class C, or you can vacate. What do you want to do with that? And I have not heard anything back from them at all. So, it's just kind of it's probably something we're gonna have to deal with one way or another. As far as I'm concerned, the county doesn't need to keep any more of the road than what we're using. It's there on paper, most of it, you wouldn't be able to walk it because it's all overgrown. I mean, it hasn't been used in decades, but it is there. And, as far as I'm concerned, I think you just get rid of the whole thing and it will keep the part that Mike has done the retracement on. And we'll get that whole thing cleaned up because we can't get rid of that part because then we run into landlocked issues and that we can't do that. So, and plus we have a bridge on it and nobody wants to, well, most people don't want a bridge, but, that's kind of where it's at. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for who wants what to happen with it. But we've had a fair amount of conversation with that road as to its future and where it's going to be and what it's going to be. The one photo that's there, it's a high level photograph and it shows the extent of that road. It's miles and miles long and it just serpentines and, it was basically established because that's where the horses went.
It's the green one.
Yep. So, yeah, it's, there was one other alteration that we do know of and we put it on there and, but we're not using that alteration either. So it's just kind of, I don't know, fell through the
So
cracks.
technically, if that was surveyed out, it wouldn't be where the road.
It does not sit where the establishment shows it and in the road record. And there's one alteration in the road record and it doesn't sit on that either.
So whose property does the road sit on now?
Well, the road
The
is,
non-road sit on.
it sits on multiple people's property, multiple. I'm sure a lot of them have no idea it's even there.
No, but how the one that they're using, what's that sit on? Whose property? does it sit
That,
Since it's not where it was supposed to be.
it's kind of, the county can acquire land by adverse possession. So the road sits where it is a monument into itself. So because that's where it is, we can make the argument that's where it is. Whether it was put there by mistake, everyone's acquiesced to the fact that that's where it is. Everybody uses it where it is. That's the road. The retracement would go back and basically everybody that's involved in the retracement signs off and says, yes, that is where the road sits. We all agree that's where it is. And then by that, the county ends up getting the road. And it matches what is on the ground.
So say again, did you say we've done the retracement?
Mike has the retracement done. Yeah.
So has everyone signed off on it?
He's just done the field work.
Okay.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything beyond that. Andy has to get involved in a little bit with that. The field work is done where we can show it on a piece of paper that this is where the road sits. And,
The board probably won't discuss this till after the Danielle makes her.
right, and
But now they know some background.
a little bit of background. It's.
So
The reality is, it's
the
been-
untraveled portion of it is not gonna landlock anybody.
not to my knowledge.
And the travel port, search is about 6 or so big parcels in there.
I think there's 4 or 5 different landowners that use that stretch of road. And it's we go in and turn around. As part of the retracement, we would actually establish a spot where we turn around and we, kind of, I don't want to use the term cul-de-sac, but it would kind of look like that at the end where we would get spun around and, that would be part of the retracement that is in there.
Yeah, because you can't technically call it a cul-de-sac because you can only go a certain amount of distance before you could
Yeah,
get.
but
that. Yeah.
that's what it will look like. And,
That's true.
it's, and if you've never been down there, it's not much of a road. If you meet somebody, it's not gonna be fun. It's just, they said it was probably established by horses going off of least resistance and just over time became a road. Which is a lot of our system. But Mike pulled up the oldest aerials we had in the 40s. I don't know exactly what year in the 40s. And when you pull it off the DNR's website or, the DNR,
DOT.
yeah, it's DOT's, the name's escaping me. That's the best photo we have. These are a bit grainy because he can't kind of zoom down into them. If you see it from up above, they're actually very clear considering the year that they were taken, but you're so far up, a lot of the detail you can't pull it off that, so.
Like we have a dump truck?
Yes, it is. Let me give this to you. Yes. Yes, it's there. They cut a check for it. I don't know when the rest of them are coming, but, they said whatever was in the dash got fixed, so that light's off and, they must have done something else to it because they said it's much quieter than the first time they drove it. It's supposed to be quiet and when they first drove it, they said it wasn't quiet.
Holes to the ground would bring up some noise.
Yeah. And we alter the cabs. I mean, that's just what we gotta do to get all our controls in them, but, still a lot nicer than the stuff they used to drive, so.
It's got a decal sign already.
No, we have to put decals on it. We gotta get radios in it. There's a GPS tracker that goes in it. So, our shop has some work to do on it yet and then we'll get.
Did we do the decals or did you?
Yeah, we put them on. There's just one in each door. It comes numbered, from the vendor. We tell them what numbers they are and they put them on. But our decals, we put those in. Cause those sometimes don't. You buy them one size and they fit this truck and the next one, they don't fit in the same place just because they changed the model. And so we decide where those go.
I had a guy call me on, Metal Arc there, coming off the old, or Locust and Metal Arc there. People come from the north like a truck or something, and they'll turn on, Metal Arc, but then their GPS will tell them once they get turned on there, they gotta turn around and go back to town. Goes until you get to Hubden's driveway or so.
Mhm.
That shows the old road when they redid
Yeah.
Locust. So your GPS won't tell you to go straight till you get about past, but then they try and turn around in that field driveway, MSUT's there. It was about 4 or 5 times a year, somebody will have a problem.
I mean, I talked
Your
to John.
GPS won't correct it till you get down.
Yeah, 'cause then you're back on the old
Then you're
road.
back on the old road. But it tells you gotta turn around once you turn on it, cause, yeah.
And it,
I don't know, they put a sign there that 52 3 miles ahead or something.
and we can.
I don't know if that would help or not.
I just noticed that this weekend, when you take Locust going out of town, you're still in town at the bottom of the hill. If you look at the dash in your vehicle, it tells you it's 35 miles an hour, but the sign sitting there on the road does not say that. And
That happens a lot of places.
when things get
It's an
changed,
Old program.
I don't know where they get
Yeah,
their data. And I've talked to John about a few others to try to get those corrected. We have a class C road. It was a class B. We made it a C now and that helped. Off of A18 where tour buses were turning to go down that road. And they would get to the bridge and then they'd be like, this cannot possibly be right. And they were correct. It wasn't, don't go down there. But, we don't know where they get this data. They don't ask us for it.
yeah, cause he brought it up on his phone and GPS didn't, once you got past Upton's or so, then
Yeah,
the
we
hills there, I think it is.
graded that in 04 or 05 and just moved that so it was straight across.
Yeah.
Canoe Ridge. And so that's been there for
Long time.
pushing 20 years and they still don't have the right data.
So is there a road sign that says canoe free?
There's one to go to, yeah, there's a dog kennel and statue.
Is there room on a larger sign to add 52?
No,
Well, no, that, cause you're coming from
The
the
other way.
north, that one comes from town and says go.
Yeah, is there one that?
I mean, we could put a sign that says US 52 and just points that
That
way.
would say, that would
Like
be better.
2.5, 3 miles.
Yeah, it's not very far, but that should.
That
Phone
might
tells
help a
them
little
now.
bit, yeah.
Some
They
people
said about
still believe the sign though.
4 or 5 times a year, he said there.
We lost the bridge that way.
Trying to turn around in that field driveway and he has no trouble.
Let's just pay it.
It's not a bad plan. Just find the money.
Just go pick it off the tree out back.
Right. But, yeah, we can get a sign put just from the north.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, or like,
I've never heard of anybody having that incident.
I mean, the guy lives across the road, I mean, it's about 4 or 5 times a year, you know. Usually about 4 or 5 in the morning, it'll be in the morning, some sunlight's coming down, delivery one someplace, and then he's gonna go, and then, oh, GPS tells him he's gotta go through the core, he can't go that way to 52. So like, and then he'll back up and try and turn around in that field driveway, and then he has problems.
That's just like that unfortunate situation in my Oshman, when we have that no winter maintenance on that cut across the road just north of town. And it doesn't matter, when people's phones tell them to go that way, you can clearly see it's not plowed, but most of them get about right in the middle before they get stuck. So I give them credit on that, it makes it really difficult to get to them.
Yeah.
Job security.
I don't know if it would help or not, but I would.
If it's at 4 in the morning, do you think they'd even see a sign?
Well, they're reflective. I mean,
Yeah,
they should see
and
it.
they're slowing down, I mean, if they're gonna turn them.
They should see every sign we have, but you talk to law enforcement, they'll tell you that people didn't see the sign and told them you're going too fast.
Worth a try.
So, yeah, we can put one up there.
Yeah,
Just
see it.
for the northbound or
Yeah,
southbound traffic would be in the
right lane, right at the
southbound traffic.
There isn't one that says canoe saturated Decorah there already?
I don't believe so.
not coming from the north, I don't.
Maybe that would be a time to put those others on there, so it's more multi-directional.
Again,
If we're gonna put up a sign, I would say, make sure that everyone knows they can turn either way.
white on blue, and they pay for those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, I mean, 52, and I'm sure the city would appreciate it if we put that sign up.
Yeah.
I just think a larger sign that would give all of the direction to the roads, not the churches and canons.
Yeah. And we don't have, the only other signs we have in there are it's a destination, it's not a roadway. You know, you're going to the kennel, you're going to Satchery, you're going to a specific place.
But coming from the south, it says it was that tree.
Yeah, Satchery is a place. And so is
Yeah.
Canoe.
Yeah, but if you're going this way, you'd say it's, if you're gonna put one for 52, why wouldn't you add four
They're different colors.
into that tree?
They're different colors. The US 52 would be white on green. And then if you're going to a place, those are white on blue. So you can make signs that way, they just get kind of complicated. DOT does it all the time, but they make them themselves, so that's, at least they used to, maybe they don't anymore. They don't seem to want to do much on their own anymore.
I don't think I have anything.
Well, one thing, DOT takes care of all their signs on 52, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's one, Scoville, or no, Fort had a camping sign on 52 pointing to their campground. But Fort has no more campground, has for, not for a couple of years. And Scoville has campground and no sign.
That'd be
So,
24.
I mean, 24 now, but I'm wondering if
Is it, what color is it? The sign, is it white on brown?
it's white on brown. Is that state sign?
It's, well, it's a park sign. They're, I don't know, that might have been one where someone asked to have it put up. Those don't have to conform to a lot of things the other ones do.
Because there's really, because Scoville would rather have the sign since they have a campground and Fort doesn't. And they're both coming up basically the same road, 52 or 24. So, but I need to talk to the DOT office out here.
Yeah, just call out here to the DOT office and they should have record if someone requested that sign to be put up, who did that? And
Maybe the Fort City Council or somebody
Yeah,
has to
I mean-
request it taken down.
if someone requested it, I don't think they're just gonna take it down.
I saw the mayor the other day, and he didn't know, he didn't forget it was totally there and they got rid of their campground several years ago.
Yeah, maybe the city requested it, so it should be them that would ask for it to come down. DOT is a little different, but even the stop signs off our roadways where we meet state and federal system, the stop sign belongs to the DOT. Everybody thinks those stop signs are ours because it stops our road, but they're not, those belong to DOT. The lights and everything else belong to us, but the stop sign belongs to them. It's just silly, but that's what they do.
Makes sense, right?
Makes perfect sense.
Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Wade. We got a couple minutes, consent agenda.
I've got the recorder's monthly report. Got a fireworks permit for Dave Ferry and the campground, Harvest Farm Campground for July 2nd in the minutes.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
The meeting tomorrow, the Bjerke watershed touring project, so. If it's not raining, hopefully it's raining.
Rain date would be better.
Yeah. Pray for a postponement on that one.
What time is that?
I believe it's 8 in the morning, we're meeting out at Big Canoe.
Security meeting, just a lot of signage in the courthouse for the third floor, additional signage, no weapons or whatever on the third floor and stuff, so they got a post one maybe coming in the door by the elevator, in the elevator, and then going up on the second floor before you go up the steps.
Yeah, I also with John Alverson, when you talked with Judge Parrish,
Yeah,
she was, she wasn't sure, but she thought that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
As long as Sam agreed, and Mark's agreed.
Yeah, I believe Tony ordered those already, didn't he?
I think, yeah, give you sent a kind of copy out what it looks like.
The wording on there looked pretty good to
You
me.
know, that way you come in the door, you can get on the elevator and have one in the elevator. You don't get all the way up there. Yeah, so it's cover all the bases coming in.
Because it's definitely on the third floor. She's not even allowed to carry. Even as a judge for her own protection. It's very strong rules.
Next on the agenda, 9:55 miscellaneous. We have certification of cost advisory services report.
So I sent this report out. It was like 60 some pages, so I didn't print it for you, but it's the, so you could review it, and you signed a contract with Cost Advisory Services a couple months ago. This is where they figure the indirect costs for the DHS building up on the South 52, so we can get reimbursement from the state and the other counties. So they completed the report and I distributed it for you electronically.
There's a lot to read through.
Yeah.
And if this is a formality, I'd move to approve the cost advisory statement.
I guess what was your take on that?
Yeah,
Formality.
it's a formality. They basically take anything that we charge directly to that building or to that office, we file separately. But anything that's an indirect cost, whether it's Tony's time processing a pay claim or things like that, then those all go in and they divide them up by all the different departments and they see how much we can claim for that building. And then get reimbursement.
I would second the motion.
Was that where the number 38.6 came up in for the cost of that building?
And I don't remember the number off the top
But
of
that
my
sounds
head.
about right.
Their fee is around $4,000 but they also limit the fee to the maximum that we're gonna get reimbursed. So they do the report and they find out it's gonna be less, then they charge us less.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the certification of cost advisory services report. And any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Do you have any other committee reports?
Well, so I was just thinking about, that conference I went to in Des Moines for the opioid settlement. What I'm kind of thinking is that, I don't know if we need to put on an agenda for next week, but if we were to form a task force with key stakeholders in the county, public health, law enforcement, mental health clinic, representative from here and the attorney's office, that committee then can meet and decide where the best use of that money is. And I met with the sheriff's office last week, and they would agree that that would be a great way to start this conversation. We stand to get about $283,000 over the next 18 years. So it's not a lot of money per year, but it's more money than we need for Narcan supplies. We've got a pretty good stock right now. So we need to look at what's the most, there are parameters, legal parameters in which we can use this money. So I think a task force would be a good idea to start that conversation, and they can better identify in the front lines, where would this make the most impact per year? And then maybe expand it to a 6-county task force and combine efforts. Because I know there's a machine that law enforcement would like to see purchased that could be used regionally within our 6-county system. So these are all questions to be asked and answers to be gathered before we really begin deciding where the best place to spend this money is. So if I could have consensus from the board today, we could start building that task force.
I think that's a great idea.
I'm thinking,
You hear a lot of like talk on county social services and all share resources and they lap over counties and stuff, so we should probably get our feet on the ground before we meet with everybody else.
And I think Andy has started a process for accepting proposals
Yeah.
from.
and that's I was just gonna mention that maybe we can bring it up when Andy's on at 10:15 and
And he and I have not had a chance to meet yet. We were gonna meet last week. And we
Well, let's
didn't get a
do that.
chance to.
Because I do think a lot of the resources are gonna end up shared with multiple counties because of people are gonna be implementing them,
sure.
overlap.
Well, this drug testing equipment that came up in our conversation is something that the 6 counties could all chip in on and all benefit from, because a lot of the work is done here anyway.
Is that the kind of machine that you're referencing,
Mhm.
the testing machine?
Well, it's a couple minutes past 10. Next on the agenda, Danielle Dotzenrod, Horn Hollow Road Extension. You guys can come on up if you want.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna speak. I'm Jim Wicca, and actually I own the property. Do I sit down or do I stand before you? Or-
Sure. Either or.
Don't mind, I'll sit. Good morning and thank you. I'm Jim Wicca. I bought the property at 2136 Horn Hollow Road last summer.
How do you
And,
spell the last,
pardon me,
how do you spell your
I
last name?
apologize, Wicca, W-I-C-K-A.
Okay, thank you.
Names officially, but, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that, if you guys and gals aren't familiar with that, that's the original residence for the H.H. Horn estate, out in that area of the county, and it was about 400, little under 400 acres. It was part of the original English colony settlement that occurred in the 1860s in Winneshiek and Decorah. It's on historical registry. It was not a farmhouse, it was called a country house because it's a pretty amazing brick structure. It's on the National Registry of Historic Society, and it's on the State Historical Society. It's the only historical residence outside of Decorah in all of Winneshiek County. That's pretty amazing. So since the fall, I and mainly Danielle has been doing historical restoration on the home under the guidance of the National Historical Society and the State Historical Society. Sorry about the background, but I thought the context might be helpful about what we're going to get to. So when researching the house and working on this, we worked with Lee and the county, and we worked with the Historical Society to find out about the estate and the property. And I mean, this is a treasure, right? It's already been recognized as a treasure. And it's been much neglected, and we're really doing it right. Historical perspective. It's going to be approved by the state and the national registry. And so it's been a great project, fun project. But when we started looking around, we discovered, talking with Lee and talking with the Historical Society, that there's the old Horn Hollow Road was actually a historic road that went from the front of the property all the way up to 52. It's been hiding in plain sight. I walked into the other building to use the bathroom and I looked at the plat map from 1874, and there it was. So that road has been there for a long time. It runs from the front of the property all the way up to 52. We've been told that it was an old stagecoach road, so maybe horses originally ran down there, but now in 1874, it was on the map and platted. Nobody wants to create a road out of it, right? It's the county owns it. It's a historical treasure, and what we're asking simply is to have access to it and make sure that everybody knows where it is. So in conversing with Lee, his suggestion was to avoid issues with the neighbor who's been assertive. We wanted to avoid any problems. We want to know where the public property is and where the private property is. And we just want to be able to walk and use that. Again, I think this is hugely valuable. It's part of the state. It's part of the history of Winneshiek. Now, nobody wants to drive around it, but to be able to use it, there are Roman roads in Europe that are 2,000 years old. Nobody wants to rebuild those, nobody wants to use them, but it's part of the history. And we just are really interested in the history and want to see it preserved. It's a very distinct part of the road. It's never been vacated. Now, it's not been identified and it's not been often used, probably because of the assertion of the property owners around it. But I think it should be available for public use. So the simple request based on these suggestions, come before the board and ask us to mark it. And that's what we're asking. There are only 2 property owners on this portion. The rest of the road has been vacated. It's been lost to time. This part still exists and we're interested in it. And I know this is not about vacating the road. This is a very narrow, simple request. Can we get it marked so we don't run into any problems? And I'm sure at some point in time, given the presence of others here, there's going to be a request to vacate time, because I think there's a lot of interest in this area of tourism and history. And I think that request, there might be some people that'd be interested in that request. So I hope this was okay. Hope I didn't go too long. If you guys have questions, comments.
Very informational.
Yeah, if you have questions, comments, and I'm not a subject matter expert. We've been relying upon, Lee's been a great resource, but also the Historical Society. The ladies there are fabulous. They really know their stuff. And it's, I mean, to be in that structure that in 1869, they were holding balls in there and the stagecoach would stop as it went by. It's pretty cool. That doesn't exist, at least where I'm originally from. You don't get that kind of history. So it's fun to be able to appreciate that and be a part of it.
Have you had any conversation, Jim, with Steve Johnson of the County Historical Society?
We've engaged with them, but specifically this topic has just come up recently. So we were getting, over the weekend, we were communicating with them and getting copies of some updated maps and trying to learn the history of it. And I'm learning as we go. Back in the day, they weren't official names for roads, right? It was identified by where the property was by or what the use was. So they're doing some additional research on it now. And again, this is just something that came out of the blue for us. It was just kind of revealed itself. And we thought we would at least ask for some help from the county. I get it. Nobody wants to spend a bunch of money. Nobody wants to redo a road. But if in fact, that's never been vacated, if in fact it's public land and it's got the road is 40 feet wide, pretty cool, like the falls out there that people can go to. It's just another attraction that draws people to this area and makes it fun and interesting. That stagecoach was rolling down there in the 1850s. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and Saturday morning at 8:30 right here is when the County Historical Society meets. You may want to, I'd love to attend that context.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for that.
How long the length of road are we talking about? Not all seven.
It's I think 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, he's basically talking about the part that Mike has gone out and retracing, yes, the best way.
Just a very short.
How long, why is it right?
It's not very wide. I want to say it's like in the 50 feet range, maybe a little longer than that, or wider than that.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it's still.
Yeah. I mean, Mike's gone through the retracement. I don't think he has it on that because it's too small to see it, but, whatever that width is, that's what we'll end up using. Part of it will go back to what was the intent of the original road and when the alterations were made, what was the common practice at those times before we're gonna say this is what it is. And I can't tell you in detail what evidence he found out there to say, that must be where the right of way line is, because you might find one wire hanging on trees that's been there for 60 years, and that's evidence. That fence was there for a reason.
So if the road is continued to use, though, you would recommend that we make it a class B so that it's not
Not
set
the
up.
retracement. We plowed in winter.
No, I'm talking about the part he's asking that we show the lines that we wouldn't want to have. This is the old road and it's still a class A road.
That's not what I was understanding. It is that it's basically going from Wagon Road, across the bridge, past the residence, and then it will terminate, at some point, going east. If if we're looking at the original road, that starts over on Old 52, which we now call College Drive, and goes up through the woods, crosses the current 52, meanders through the woods, goes by these residents, and then continues and goes north for miles. That would take us weeks and weeks to get that done.
And we're not interested in
Yeah,
that. We're
that's
just
not what I'm-
interested in the limited section right before the home that runs up to 52. It's a idyllic, very, right by the river, just a gorgeous spot. So that's our lone concern. We're not looking to maybe spend a bunch of money or a bunch of work. It's just something that's cool, that's contiguous with the property.
So my point is that if you do have someone mark that portion and continue it as a public roadway so that they can walk it or whatever, then that should be Class B, because we aren't gonna go in there and plow it
Yeah.
and clear it
And
and
that-
gravel
And
and,
that's a separate action.
yes.
If it goes on its establishment, it's established as a Class A.
Yes.
And so to change it, you would have to act to change it.
And it's Class B. The public will still have access to it.
They have access to it.
C.
It's closed.
C is gated.
The Cs are gated and it's restricted who has access, renters, the landowner, the county, a judge. I mean, it's restricted who can go back there. Utilities, things like that, but, and then.
I'm just thinking, if you mark it, here's what the road still exists. If you don't make it a Class B, then someone, even if he's not requesting it, someone could come along and say, well,
I want
You
to
need-
plow.
you need to get this plowed and get the gravel on
Some
it.
gravel in.
We've left the Class Bs and the Class Cs. I mean, probably the simplest way to explain it is they are designed to fail. We don't do anything with them until the adjoining landowners come in and say, I can't get through that thing anymore. And then we'll go in there and do the bare minimum to make it passable again. And then we wait for someone to call and say, I can't get through there. That's historically how we've treated them. And so if you did all of that, someone could come in and say, hey, I need that so it's passable.
Is this area right now wooded? Or is it?
A lot of it is.
It is.
So what would vacation
Yeah.
look like?
If you vacate the road, it no longer exists. It's all private property.
And it goes back to
The land from which it came. You gotta be careful when you have a piece of property that the road was taken from, if that land has been cut apart since then, who owned what when it was established? We ran into this in Baroque that landowner wanted us to vacate a section of the road. But when he bought his piece of property, the road was not taken from those pieces. It was taken from the original big piece. So we vacated, he didn't get it. He had to work out with the original landowner, or the owner of the original land, I should say, to work out a quitclaim deed to get that property, because it didn't go to him. It went back to the original property from which it was taken, which he did not own. And with this being cut up, that there's that potential that you vacate, who gets what? I don't foresee this being that big of a problem, but it could.
Wouldn't take the county out of it completely.
It's private property. We have no claim to it at that point.
So Jim, my question would be, would your intent then be that if this were public, maintained as public, that you would develop some kind of a walking trail through there?
Yeah.
So that it was
Right.
at least marked so that people are not wandering off onto Jim's
Absolutely.
property over here
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right, and that's the purpose of coming here, rather than just going on and rummaging around and creating issues. Trying to be a good neighbor and say, listen, it's here, let's just get some rudimentary marking, maybe a little sign that says what it is, maybe a little bit of sign that this is the history of what you're walking across, just keep it simple.
I mean, we would permanently establish it. We would go out, set pins and, I mean, so 35 years from now, when someone else comes in to discuss that road, they can actually go out and find where it is. Because with,
So
that was,
the board's options are either to vacate it, which is not what Jim's requesting, or to mark it and classify it as a lower class than class A.
Could any other landowners request, to vacate in here?
I think sounds like everybody's okay, nobody's requesting the other portion. That should get vacated, because if it's still marked on
Yeah.
there,
16.5 miles.
yeah.
it's a lot of road.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, now that you
We did
mentioned
this.
So that part should get vacated either way, because nobody wants that still marked, but it's this beginning few.
3/4 of a mile.
It's the part in question.
That has, in my mind, has merit if you have a historically recognized property that it fits with. You know, we still want to try to maintain that within our county.
Well, this isn't affecting that property.
No, it's
You
just,
still have that property. How many acres are around that house?
it's 3.5.
3.5 acres total?
Oh, right, just around that house, but the contiguous nature of the road, which was originally used by the estate and the home and just it's just the.
So I bet we have like 300 of these around the county.
Pardon me?
I mean, how many hundreds do we have?
The roads that you walk out that you would never know that they're road.
Right.
And I get it, this is a challenge, but I just think this uniqueness warrants maybe a little bit of at least thought around it. Energy.
I think it's a fair ask.
Is the intent of this property to be like a public venue? Oh,
Airbnb, right.
There'd be, out of town visitors then walking through that woods.
Potentially, and I mean, that's right. I would think it's just a plus to enjoy the history of Winneshiek and the English colony and that whole movement. It's pretty cool stuff. I never knew about it.
Regardless of what you do or do not do with his request, our retracement, we have to do it. Because right now the road sits somewhere that we cannot show any record of it being there other than it moved in an aerial photograph. And it is a monument unto itself. That's where it is, and we need to get that cleaned up to show this is our road. What you do beyond that, you guys can decide that, but that, I want to just clarify that retracement will go through no matter what else.
So the three things are, you need to do the retracement.
Yes.
And that's gonna get done either way. The part of the road from the house going east or towards 52 or whatever, we should start the process of getting that. Get rid of that, so that it's not on the books. And then these guys maybe even wanna discuss or go look at it or something, but decide on the other short part.
If we do look to, if you want to keep the one part from, Wagon Road to the current US 52, there is another section east of current 52 that goes to College. And I know that the landowners over there know that road exists because there's been some disputes about it. These things were parked on it and we stayed out of it, but they do know it exists over there.
But that piece falls in the city limits.
Part of it does, I think there's a little bit outside the city limit yet as well. But they do know that road exists.
I guess
that
it would
road
be great if we could hear from the other landowners.
Well,
They need to get on the agenda.
I don't think you should decide on this one specific
No.
request today, because there are other people who might have
Right,
opinion, but you could start those other parts of the process, get the
The
retracement done,
retracement has to
and get the part that's not part of this request in the works for.
So the retracement would be the original road.
No.
The retracement states, this is where the road is. Because we have no other record that matches.
So that we can justify our current road.
Yes.
That's kind of a separate
So
question.
basically saying this is the road and putting it on record that that is the road.
Because then whatever we choose to do going forward is after the fact.
But we have to do it, those of us.
How many landowners are back in here? I see 3 possibly?
On the extension that we're considered, I think they're just 2.
So the
3/4
other-
mile that you're talking about.
But now if you're going to the other side, 52 down to College, then that's more.
Yeah.
What we're.
Where you're talking about is 2, so if that other landowner were to get on the agenda, we could hear the.
Sure. But again, I'm not, that you guys are, and you're all steeped in this. It's a public road. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I come at it, and can we mark it, can we walk it? That's, but if you say, no, here's the procedure, we can do this, God bless, what our request was, we just don't want any trouble, and we just ask it to be marked, and that's.
What we're gonna take to mark the original,
They might, in the original survey, and recreating it, going through the woods.
Mark 3/4 want to take that much, but maybe the whole.
no, yeah.
I mean, it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
It's not, you won't have it done today. That's not gonna happen, but, it will take him time and, you know, depending on terrain, if he has to shoot it the old fashioned way where it's line of sight, it's taking you longer, because if you can't get GPS signal in there, all we can do is go back to line of sight.
Yeah, I haven't thought of that.
And it's, when you get in heavy wooded areas, that becomes an issue.
I think this was very informational for us and.
Yeah.
Something that looks like.
One of the few times I've spoken and someone said that, so thank you. People give it what did he just say, or very goofy, so thank you.
No.
We're really, I mean, this is a passion, we're really interested in it, and it's just sometime once the house is done, we're gonna have everybody over, but it's gonna be, Danielle is doing a great job, and her dad's actually doing some work, which is hard to believe, you know, your dads are not actually working.
Got pictures of that?
I've got a video, because I didn't think anybody would. Forecast, pretty breathtaking. Thanks, anything else?
Just, I encourage you to come Saturday.
We will be here on Saturday. Thank you.
All right. Max, you cut into your time a little, Andy.
No problem. You don't need me to.
Nope, you're good, Lee. Thank you for sticking around. ISAC and HIPAA program agreement.
We've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, I think. ISAC coordinates HIPAA training sessions. They provide resources for making sure we're HIPAA compliant. It's been a useful program for the last few years, and I'd encourage you to continue it.
Jana,
I would move to continue the HIPAA.
I would second that.
we have a motion and a second. The ISAC HIPAA program agreement. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Andy, I had mentioned to them the opioid settlement conference I went to, and I sent you an email on it on the 30th. It probably got buried in a bunch of emails when you got back. Did you have a chance to read through that?
I read through it, and
Okay.
I think you have as good a handle as anybody here right now in
Okay,
terms of what's available and probably how best to proceed. I think, as I recall, the gist of the suggestion was that you look at, is there a 4-county, 5-county, or even 6-county interest in putting together a package for addressing this and pulling the resources to do it. I guess that would be a question to bring up at your meetings with the other supervisors.
Could you speak louder, please?
I think that's something to bring up with the other, counties.
So I'm, Janelle from Fayette County was there at the conference, and I can't remember the attorney's name from Alameda County. She's their assistant accounting.
Yes, sir.
Yes. The two of them both agreed it'd be nice to just have the 6 county supervisors and other key stakeholders to have a conversation and see what some options are. When I met with Dan and his guys down at the sheriff's office, they mentioned there's 28 E agreements in place already that could help move this forward. to do some things together with that money, but we could still do our own separate.
Those 2080 agreements are for mutual, like, for the most part.
Yep.
It might be a little bit unusual to, I'm not sure how the opioid would fit into the 2080s. I think your starting point needs to be, are the other supervisors on
Yep.
board? And if they are, trying to figure out who your stakeholders are to bring in, if that's the direction you decide to.
Yeah. And I've got a list of, like law enforcement, the clinics, Northeast Iowa Behavioral Health, Helping Services, Public Health, citizens and experience in opioid overdose in their family maybe, and then the 6-county coalition. Is what kind of came out of the conference from the people presenting the conference.
We had any input from Miscellaneous County and when they're gonna hold the next 6-county meeting.
Not yet,
I think that'd be a grand time to bring
for
it
the
up.
supervisors to talk.
So I'll talk about it.
Mhm.
Should be coming up pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, and so, key is next up, right?
Yeah.
We had the last one.
Dan and his guys are very excited for this possibility to get a task force put together and talk about ways to use the money within the legal uses of the money. And there's a whole document called Exhibit E that pretty well lays it out, but if it's related to education, K through 12, it could be media campaign, it could be, equipment for testing, for drug testing, it could be, Narcan purchases. I mean, there's so many ways to use this money. So,
I think the 2080 she referenced comes into play. Several counties want to go together to buy one of these equipment, testing equipment, that would sort of take them back.
And that was something I visited with Chris Walker about was, there is, it's a $70,000 piece of equipment, but it takes DCI crime lab out of the picture essentially, and, you know, if you could share it amongst 5 or 6 counties, you could probably, faster turnaround time on opioid usage and issues like that within your, you know, within your investigation. So, that would probably take a separate 2080 from what they have, but you know, that was one of the comments that came up. I'm not entirely convinced that the purpose of this money was totally earmarked for enhancing prosecution so much as it was, you know,
Rehab and
prevention and rehab.
and getting rid of stigma is one of the main things too. They covered, the whole first day was about societal stigma against mental health and drug use. I wish the whole community could have been on that part of the workshop. Because that's what causes a lot of this and prevents them from getting help. It's really. So is there consensus around the table to just start identifying some key stakeholders just within our own county, which would be mental health clinic, helping services, law enforcement, clinics, public health?
I think that would be good to have people get together. Especially if we're gonna,
It's probably a good starting point for the county to set that up.
Just so we know where we're sitting.
And when we're going to the next 6-county meeting, bring it forward in front of
Yep.
all the other supervisors from the other counties and see if they have the
It's just more information.
same interests.
would you have interest in contacting these people?
Yeah.
I guess I'd be in that, happy to have her do that and get,
Because
get
it's the
the
people,
conversation started.
and it's the people who are dealing with it on the front line.
Cause like I
We
said,
learn from them and they can guide us as where would this make the most impact, this money?
a lot of the county social services that comes up in the discussions that are great. Teens especially.
No,
Roughly when's the next 6-county? It's good.
we don't know.
That's kind of just whenever the county,
It's Alameda County's turn.
it goes in alphabetical order.
Right, it's about twice a year.
Well,
Oh, more than that.
more than that, usually about,
Once a quarter.
yeah.
So it should be coming out pretty soon. So if you're gonna try to get this community action, that probably ought to happen in the next few, like within at least a month.
I'd be happy to contact
I think-
McKee County unless you want to
Just-
contact their,
I guess, one of us can.
right.
I don't want us look like we're demanding them, hey, we want you to have this meeting. I mean, that's. kind
Well, I can contact,
Jill.
Jill, thank you. I can contact Jill and then she can work with her board to see if that's something they could
Just
put on the
see if they're
agenda for the
planning
sixth
something
county meeting.
sometimes.
Yeah,
That would work.
okay.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
Well, it sounds like Lee, that they have directed Lee to work with you to do some road vacations. So both this one that you were in on the conversation and the earlier one that was, what he talked about earlier.
The parsonage and Ridge.
Oh, the parsonage in Ridgeway.
Ridgeway off of W14.
The driveway that goes to the parsonage is, half of it is a county road. And it's now no longer gonna be a parsonage because it's for sale. So they wanna vacate that bottom half of the parsonage. So he'll probably be working with you on that. too.
Following the private driveway.
Yeah,
I came in on the tail end of this one. Which road are we talking about here?
Horn Hollow Road.
It's really interesting layout.
Where was it on this?
We go off a pole line road.
It's the green line.
And it's
This is here. Yeah, so this is the current road, where the current road is. But once you get here, there's this old road that's on the records. It goes up to here, which is the part he was questioning whether we could mark so people could walk. And then it continues on there. Like, all over.
And it goes from
All the way up.
52 over to old 52, kitty corners crossed over if you're there too.
Okay.
Most of it's buried in the woods.
Michael. Explain it to me. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That one might be. exciting.
he has some other maps over there you can look at too.
Right. Marcus sent me an email this past week. I need to visit with you about something. All
Okay.
right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just the clarification for, the vegetation management. Consent proposal, is that going out? Did that go out?
That's up to you guys to review, if you want to put together that order. Mark asked me to put together an RFP for, financial analysis of the, roadside management program. And I had sent a draft last week to Mark. He identified some things he wanted changed, and I guess I'd leave you to put it on the agenda to.
Sure you have it on next week.
Let's put it on for next week so people can see it. Pretty straightforward. People might have
You
other
can forward
ideas.
it on to the rest of the board, or I can, whatever you prefer.
Why don't you go ahead and do it?
All right, I'll get it out.
It's just, don't reply all.
Right.
Andy, do you want to discuss the opioid at all, or was that email sufficient?
Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Shirley asked me to bring up the spectrum, where we, which direction are we heading there?
Mike Merrick was just wondering
Are
what
we
the
on a
latest.
holding pattern?
Have you talked with the
No,
people?
she gonna be around till 12.
Oh, okay.
Until then, she.
So we won't know anything till after June 12th.
Okay.
Till the middle of the month.
And I spoke with John this morning and he said that, this new speaker system and stuff would run 25 to 30,000 down.
That's if we do the
For that
Cadillac.
one with Bosch.
Cause we have then talked.
He's going to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Cause
He's trying to make sure I'm getting back.
He was gonna check in that.
With you guys.
His thing is second owls to get microphones at both ends. And then see if there's a way to pump that audio through these speakers.
Okay.
The one that he quoted was like the one they use at the UN, which is like a super fancy.
I don't think we're deserving.
I think there might be other options.
I think they have own that out, so it's like, we'll be there, just buying a small amp to put it into these speakers.
Well, that would be great if that works.
Yeah.
And John is getting a bid on repairing this concrete back here at the end of the driveway, right by the sidewalk. This sunk down there, we had that other piece, and then Hubca's gonna come in and take a look at that, of these two trying to get something done there. He's got Wadsworth checking on the cost of changing these windows, but these windows were put in
These,
5 years ago.
What's wrong with them?
Well, somebody complained about the noise thing
Oh,
to John about
this-
these.
Oh, those,
these two
pick up traffic.
traffic noise comes in.
They ain't all that old, I mean, I don't know what you're
Yeah,
gonna.
they're 5 years old.
Yeah, they're only 5 years old.
Did we find any more out on the roof?
No, that's kind of on hold because we don't have a problem. They did the temporary repair.
They did a temporary repair up here.
It may buy us a few years, but John is still working on getting some
Yeah.
Bids, yeah.
bids.
Well,
Yeah,
he's holding on the bids. I'm getting a full-blown spec written, so we have comparisons. We do not want another situation like the courthouse roof
No.
Mhm.
without proper specs and proper
Yep.
vetting of who's gonna put it up. We don't want the new guy that just went through training,
Yeah.
you know, to do like what we've got in the courthouse.
We have the luxury of hindsight right now. They thought they had the
We
right.
have a leak, that leak that brought down the ceiling tile in the courtroom still hasn't been identified where that came from.
Mhm.
And it's not the one picture of the small one, it was another whole wet section that came from a different spot. So if it rains tomorrow, John's to call me and we'll go up and scout around and see if we can find anything,
If it rains.
if it rains. Pray for rain.
Sounds like you
Lots of
be doing any looking.
This, cement issue out here, it's about that much. Probably could just grind that.
That's possible, it's less than an inch, that's
Yeah,
possible.
well, if there's a couple, but less than an inch could do that.
Yeah, the other one was far end,
Yeah.
that was definitely.
What's the update on the railings?
I haven't heard from that. I thought about
Nobody
this. I
has?
walked in, I'll check. I'm gonna go see John, after this, when we're done. I think we're still on track with emergency management, aren't we, today?
So that's tomorrow
That's
or next
next
week.
week.
Next week.
Yep.
Yeah, so next week, you'll have a longer meeting because you have that.
Yeah, that's
Sean's
scheduled
doing
for
11.
Whenever we finish, right?
Yeah.
11 o'clock.
I think I put it on at 11,
Okay.
just because you've been having shorter meetings the last few weeks.
Mhm.
All right. Is there anything else that I missed out on last week that you guys can fill me in
It's a
on?
pretty short week.
It looked like a short meeting, but
Yeah.
you know, you still feel like.
I've had a majority of calls on the 410s,
Too.
a lot of. The guys, because they're gonna take Fridays off anyway now, their vacation on Fridays.
Well, they've earned vacation.
And now they're gonna lose, they can get their work done in the summer because they're don't have the 410s, they work their 40 hours the 4 days. And now they're gonna lose 8 hours of work, you know. But they said, we're gonna take our Fridays off because we're used to it and I can see their point.
Well, now they're taking their Fridays off, but they were taking Thursday and Friday.
No,
Well, if you look at the numbers, they were.
they didn't.
They have all, go to the engineer's office and ask for vacation data. And it's interesting.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I heard, the most important comment that I heard was they consider that for over these last 3 years and years, this has been a perk for them.
Yeah.
Because in the winter, when they're having to plow snow in the wintertime and they're called in on any short notice under holidays, Christmas, any other day, or their child's birthday or whatever, they have to jump up and go do this. And so this has been what kind of a de facto perk in their own mind. And so that is, well, excuse me,
Yeah, go ahead.
that is, you know, in their mind, that's a heck of a morale issue.
Yeah,
They
Yeah,
don't
it
feel
is.
like they really lost something.
yep,
And I see, that's a big point.
yeah. I mean, why should they suffer for 1 or 2 people not doing it right, you know? Why should the rest of the workers have to pay for it?
We don't wanna lose staff.
And we're gonna lose staff, and we're gonna lose a lot of the good ones.
You done?
I am,
All right. I just want to mention this. Go look at the numbers of vacation that were taken and when they were taken. 1 and 2, train of thought. I hate when that happens. Oh, over the last 10 years, 5 years were 5/8 and 5 years were 4/10. So it's not a long-term history of 4/10 right now. It's over the last 10 years, there's 5 of each. So
Right.
again, I think if we start telling what a department head should do with their schedules, I think we're overstepping our duties here. They run the schedule and
But I
they're
guess
basing it on
I'm
their
listening to the
experience.
Workers, I mean, we lose workers.
So when the-
We ain't gonna get you back.
So when the
There's
funds,
somebody out there.
they get called in extra, they're getting time and a half.
Yes.
So it's not like they're just having to work extra time, they're getting compensated for that.
Well, that's not the issue.
Well, but it is an issue and that they're not just,
They're getting compensated. I agree with you, Mark.
Yeah.
That's a valid point. It's the issue of when you made family plans and so forth, and you consider all of, they jump to that because that's their job. And I have no.
Snow plowing, they're big.
Snow plowing
Yeah.
is an important safety issue for us, period.
It definitely is a bonus that doesn't cost any more for the county. I mean, it's rewarding them guys for getting up in the middle of the night or like say Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. You take those days away from being able to spend time with your family, you don't get those back. I mean, this is one little perk that we could give them that isn't gonna cost the county any money. That's one way you have to look at it also.
Yeah. Right.
I think you're, really though, it's that since it's the department head's call and you're gonna be looking for a new department head too, and that's when you,
I think they should.
I mean, I don't think there's any
Find as
thing
much
you can do right now, because Lee's on this way out anyway, so.
Like I said, I think the department head should be the one to decide what's the best operation method for them.
Like last year was the best thing, 410s, and we never heard a word about that. It was people were abusing it, and all of a sudden,
There's a
now
number,
it's a big issue.
I know, but
That is-
a lot of places, everybody doesn't get it off. There's a rotating thing. It's my weekend to work, or I'm on call this weekend, and so everybody's not off, but a fourth or 3/4 of them are off. But
They still have
other
that.
people are,
And the surrounding counties, it's about half and half. So it's not universal.
so there's always people working on Friday, but not all of that.
Not in the case prior to what they used to. They'd be on call, say the tree comes down or whatever.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Those two people have to leave that shop and go out and take care of the tree, whether it's a Friday, Saturday, or a Sunday.
But
And they
maybe,
do rotate
but
that.
maybe it would be more efficient if they just were working that day and doing work.
Maybe it's something you can, when you're interviewing, that wants to be one of the topics you want to ask your candidates for new engineer. That's something you ask, what do you think about this type of program?
Where I work means like, you have so many Saturdays or weekends you're working that you're assigned to each year, and that's what part of your idea is. You don't necessarily get a compensation for it, but that's your time. So that way, they're still only work 40 hours a week. It's just, this is your Saturday for Friday to be on call.
And do you pay for me on call?
We don't.
You don't?
It's just
Do you
part of
pay
the
for the
contract.
day to come in on that Saturday?
Huh?
You get paid to come in on that Saturday?
No, we just are open and we have to work that day.
But you don't get paid at all for work.
You're salary.
Well, we're salary
40.
in that, but we're giving up weekends, but it's also, I'm not taking time off during the week to compensate for it either because I'm salary.
That was just different.
Which is different,
Yes,
but
yeah.
the person is working that week, they work 5 8s instead of 4
I think
10s.
if. Two things. I keep going back to the department head should make the scheduling decision, but if Jeff and Isaac and Lee were sitting here, it'd be great to have that conversation so you can hear all of the reasoning behind it. Right now, a lot of assumptions are being made. I'm sure there are some stellar people who never, ever abused it, and there's people who have abused it. So if he's looking at his numbers and he sees a pattern that now they take Thursday off and Friday, because Fridays they already have, now we're down to a 3-day work week for a lot of people. So, and they've earned their vacation. So I don't mind if they're taking their vacations on Fridays. They've earned it, just like everybody in the courthouse would love to have every Friday off. They don't get every Friday off.
They don't have to go plow snow either.
So now
That's
Christmas. and
the job they
Thanksgiving.
applied for. That was the job
Part of-
description.
It's part of your job, when you take it, that's.
It's like in the auditor's office, they've got to work overtime during voting season.
Work a couple Saturdays.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Anyway,
I think it'd be great to have the people who actually make the decisions be here to answer the questions that people might have about it, so that no assumptions are being made.
You didn't make a question. I made a statement of what I've been hearing, sure, that was
Yeah,
nothing to do with the
I
question.
talked to the road, they called me and a lot of them.
I'm telling you, public comments,
You're telling me public comments?
public comment. I get them sitting on my front porch.
Well, we all get them. I mean, people approach you everywhere you are when you're a supervisor. That goes with the territory. But my point I'm trying to make is
You made it, Troy.
talk to the county
Second.
people who run it.
We have a motion and second to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, sign, motion.
Who made the motion?
I didn't.
Okay.
I'll be here for an hour for office hours.
Yeah, it's one number. Oh, I don't know, I was thinking.
Is that what?
Sure.
I think it's the auditor doing copies for all of us.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And if you want to get on the agenda for next Monday.
I would love to get
I'll
out.
talk to the auditor and get it tomorrow.
Only not right this minute. I have to be up in my office.
Oh,
And need to have it, so,
okay, may I give that? to-
yep, and I'll make sure they get it, yep.
All right. And
You need it back right now.
where, no, I don't, I have, but where do I come to you?
To the auditor's office, you can either call or just stop up there now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tony can.
Yep, anybody in there can get you on the agenda.
There's two of us.
And the plans don't like. I mean, if we all.
Sounds like that. Cornhollow Road is probably a little more controversial than like the person that they presented it.
Yeah, well, then they all followed them out when they left.
Very
Court.
enjoyable. It will.
They didn't go to the third floor of the courthouse at least.
No one be,
Yeah. It's there, it's best offers, and so she would be.
Okay.
Daddy, no.
Yeah, what?
Not like he's just not doing well. I know, but I'm saying, just a little while.
I know, but a little while we don't have right now. We will eventually love to do it. It's not gonna happen. It's just
Yeah.
no, favorite. My own baby is. Once it's gone.
Right. Right. For certain.
Dan, what is your title besides being an auditor for being here for these?
That's part of being the auditor.
It is.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
general for in Iowa?
Yeah.
All the auditors?
All the auditors are the clerk to the Board of Supervisors and the defined in the code. Now, some auditors send one of their staff and some boards of supervisors hire someone to take the minutes and then give it to the auditor to file, but
And the minutes can be meaningful or they can just be form minutes,
yes,
which tell the public nothing.
yes. Well, that's what they're supposed, they do what they're legally required to do is all they do, so. No, she went out to talk with one of the other board members, so there weren't three of them together. I'm pretty certain.